For me, being hard to kill is about a daily struggle of doing the things that you're supposed to do, that you know you're supposed to do. So when shit hits the fan, mind, body, and soul, you have the confidence to be hard to kill. It has to start there. Knowledge is nothing in this world without action. And the people in this world that say knowledge is power, that's not right. You can have all the knowledge in the world. If you do not action that knowledge, it is fruitless and it will go nowhere. I happen to know that all Navy SEALs, Green Berets, and Special Operators are the exact same people as everyone else, except that they do one thing different. It's action.
Hurry up, drop the truck, drop the truck.
We'll just leave our buddy here to get crushed. Come on, come on, push! Let's go.
If you don't inject stimulus into your life and then grow from that and deal with it, you will never be successful, and that has to happen. So I grew up in Texas in a small community called Wedgwood. It's on the west side of DFW. Born and raised in Texas, I've always been a Texas guy. You know, growing up, I had a grandfather that was in World War II, and he was really close with me. All of my uncles were in Vietnam. My aunt was a commander in the Navy, but no one in my nuclear family was in the military at all. And it was interesting because early on in my youth, I asked my grandfather to tell me stories about his war experience. You know, World War II generation of men, in my opinion, greatest generation of men that's ever been on this earth. And so just as a young man, I was captivated by his stories. I wanted to hear more. And so he opened that box and sort of let me in and started telling me about his time in World War II. And it was incredible. It literally changed my life. All of his stories were positive. I had him in my life early on talking about the men that he was with, talking about the battles that they went to, talking about the exposures in a positive light. And at the end of all those stories, there was one big theme, and that big theme was that they had to just win at all costs. And I loved it. I was like 10 years old and I just ate it up. And so growing up, I knew what I was going to do. I was always going to be a soldier, and it was because of the dedication of men like my grandfather and paving the way forward for guys like me. I ultimately chose Special Forces to become a Green Beret, but that was something that took a while. And really, that's one of the reasons that I started Operators Association, is because I was so lost. I had no idea what I was doing. There was no YouTube, there was no intel collection whatsoever. You pretty much choose your own adventure and then you go send it. And now we have access to technology and information, and usually we can deliberate. And so based on my skill sets and the fact that I'd already gone through college and done some other things in my life professionally, I truly believe that macro version of advising, assisting, unconventional warfare, guerrilla tactics, behind enemy lines for a longer period was exactly what resonated with who I was. And so for that reason, that's why I attacked it. Army Special Forces selection is unlike any other special operations selection course that's out there, because at the end of our selection, you could have passed everything. You could have done all the rucks, all the runs, all the miserable obstacle courses, all the yelling and screaming, throwing up, whatever your body's taking you through. You could have gone through literally all of that. And then at the end, you stand in a line and they just tell you you're not good enough. And that's it. Nowhere else in special operations, not the Navy SEALs, not the Army Rangers, not the Mars operators, can you pass everything and they just tell you that you're not enough to continue on. It was miserable, it was tough, I hated it at some times, but at the end of it, you got to grow from everything that you do. And so for me, I took it as a massive learning lesson that you've just got to over-prepare for everything. And that was the beginning of my special operations career. I still had to go through another 18 months of a course where many people were dropped. And so I used that lesson to continue to prepare for each evolution after that. And so for me, what that looked like was the 4 F's. That's faith, and I don't mean religious, I mean faith in yourself, faith in anything, faith that you can do this, just believe in yourself. That's your fitness. You gotta have your fitness on point, period. If you show up to selection and your fitness is a mess, you're not gonna make it past day one. That's your focus. Everything that you do, you have to be focused. From tying your shoes the correct way, to putting on your uniform the correct way, to wearing your roster number absolutely perfectly in line with what they told you to. If you mess up that stuff, you're out. Your dreams of being a Green Beret are done because you didn't do something small. You have to focus on everything that you do. And the last one is fundamentals. All of the knowledge that you've got to learn, there are gonna be actual tangible skills that you have to learn or you're not gonna be successful here. And people don't put enough information, people don't dive enough into these fundamentals when they show up. It's something that's lost in translation. And they give you the answers to the test. Most people don't put 50 hours into it, they put about 2. And so for me, what I noticed along the way is that I was passing things that people were failing. I was going through evolutions and 70% of the class was failing. And so when the dust settled at the end of the day, and the night before graduation showed up, our cadre came to me and said, hey, Zach, listen, I just want to let you know that you're the class 296 Echo valedictorian. And I had no clue that was coming. I was still in the mindset that I probably wasn't going to pass because I was so addicted to the idea that I needed to continue to work harder. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. And that's the blueprint that you have to inject into your mindset in order to go to something like this and come out successful. That's the only way to do it. You know, realistically, life's an evolution. You consistently grow from your experiences. And so the day that I showed up in special operations training, I was a fraction of the human that I was when I graduated. That's a fact. All along the way, there's stimulus, there's frustration, there's failure, there's defeat, there's people screaming at me, telling me that I did something wrong, just being a complete mess up the whole way through it. You're told that you're failing because you are failing until you pass, because there's growth in the bottom. And so for me, I just knew that if I stayed positive and I continued to push through this thing and take away the lessons that I learned from every single phase, that ultimately you couldn't lose. And so when I got to the end, I kept great notes and I've got all of my lessons learned from every single phase. And so for me, that's the evolution. You have to look back at everything that you do during the course and make sure that you grow from it or you're never going to be in the future. In 2016, we deployed to Afghanistan. At the time, our president was President Obama. And if you're familiar with the timelines there, in February of 2017, we were still in Afghanistan and the cabinet switched. So we switched from Obama to President Trump. Overnight, everything switched. He said, hey, listen, there's a growing presence of ISIS. At the time, our rules of engagement were not to attack ISIS. And so we were going after high-value targets in the Taliban only. And we knew where the ISIS people were. They had an entire campground on the eastern side of the country. And so within a week, we got all our people together and decided that we were going to go take the fight to ISIS. And so overnight, our mission switched and we decided it's time to go get ISIS. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it in rucksacks and we're going to do it overnight. And so my team split up into 2 cells and we embedded in overnight for what we thought was going to be a 6-day mission to wipe out the ISIS presence in this individual valley. And when we showed up, there was way more ISIS guys than we thought, and we were unprepared. And what happened was this turned into from a 6-day mission, working out of our rucksacks, systematically clearing these buildings, to a 23-day mission with the same rucksacks, clearing through all these buildings. And so for 23 nights, we slept in our rucksacks, systematically clearing these buildings in this valley. And at the end of that mission, I was sitting on a security position with a good friend of mine at the back as my team completely continued to clear all these buildings moving down this valley. And we started getting shot at. We started getting shot at sporadically, which was common for the time. And I said, hey man, we're getting shot at, you know. And so we start really looking for where they are. We start using some of the technology that we have to look behind bushes and around corners if we could. Where are these dudes at? Because we're stagnant, we're just sitting there. So finally we figure out they may be in these bushes over here. And so we get out some machine guns. It's just me and one other guy. We get out some grenades and we start peppering that area, figuring out if there's somebody in there. And almost immediately all hell breaks loose. What happens is there are a few guys right there and they're moving in to conduct what's called an L-shaped ambush on us. So they've got guys on one side, they've got guys on the other side here, and they're moving in on us rapidly. And as soon as we started shooting, they immediately started shooting back. We thought there was maybe 5 or 6 of these guys. And so we start taking out targets of opportunity and they're pushing us. Our team finally, I relay to them what's going on. So they're like, okay, we're gonna turn around and come back. It's getting a little gnarly back there. And I would say within about 30 seconds, we went from taking sporadic gunfire from 5 or 6 ISIS fighters to all hell breaking loose and finding out that there was about 33 of these guys that were moving arms. And my teammate who's with me is going absolutely ridiculous on this machine gun. And I've got this grenade launcher that I'm doing pretty handy work with. And the next thing I know, I look over and I see this guy pop up, and I'm about to pivot to kind of put my attention on him. And I noticed that he's got an RPG and he just shot one. It is already gone. And I remember vividly seeing the rocket coming at me and thinking to myself, you know, why is it moving so slow? That should be moving faster. I don't know why it's moving so slow. And the next thing I know, it hits directly behind me. There's a wall behind me. It hits the wall behind me. A bunch of shrapnel kind of gets thrown at me. I get kind of blown around a little bit, but I'm still in the fight. I'm still there. I'm still alive. Everything's rocking. You can't see anything. If you've ever been around an actual explosion, it's just dust. I mean, it's just too much power. And so I'm blinded by the light, basically. And so we finally go in, and we find out that there's 30 guys there, and there's a CCT, a combat control technician, an Air Force cat. He's embedded with our team, and he says, all right, fine, let me figure this out. He hunkers everybody back down and just goes to work with the Air Force. And the Air Force tells us exactly how many guys they are and what they're doing. And within about 2 minutes, this incredible display of power from the Air Force eradicates everybody that's left in that area. And for me, that was one of the moments in my life where not only did my teammate do what he was supposed to beside me, not only did my teammate come and grab me, which is what he's supposed to do, and pull me back inside, not only did I wake up and get back in the fight, even with some injuries, but the CCT guy who was attached to our team was as quick and as handy as possible. The guys in the jets did exactly what they were supposed to do. The communications worked. And so when I sit here and tell you that teamwork matters, I mean that I would have died there if these guys didn't do their shit. And so for me, when we come out here, you've got to get it right because it matters. I learned that mentoring people for me was something that was gratifying. I got excited about it, I'm passionate about it, and it fuels me for the other things that I want to do. When we showed up in Afghanistan and I got into the weeds with like teaching these indigenous populations how to survive and how to fight back against the rough people in their area, I understood and I got to reflect on myself and know that like that kind of gets me going, that fires me up, that motivates me. I'll wake up at 5 a.m. to teach these guys how to do this stuff. I love it. And so when I can inject that here in Operators Association for American civilians that want to go forward and do great things for our country, it's a massive success. And now that I see guys graduating, becoming Navy SEALs, becoming Green Berets, and coming back to Operators Association to work as our staff, as mentors, the system is working.